Yeah, the common use cases, that's what you are trying to understand about the website, or like mobile-based application or social media applications or content delivery like a Dropbox or Google Drive or media distribution like Netflix or Prime. And not only that, so some other like objectives with the storage, backup, and disaster recovery. And we need to have the development and test environments also. But any application, so that's like a website or gaming applications, if you go for that, yes, we need that infra layer. That is about networking, storages, servers, operating systems. Yes, if we just think about our laptop. So for about our regular use cases, we are using the laptop the same way. So that's like applications, if you are running that, or if you are accessing this on the internet, is nothing but a backend. Those applications are using that. There are a lot of, I mean, that's a lot of storage is required, network bandwidth is required. So the like number of servers required, operating systems required, security point of view, secured operating systems. Yeah, this is an infra layer, but infra is not enough to run that application. Platform is required. That is Java platform or .NET platform or Python platform. And finally, application and application layer is required. Yes, that's a customer's application which will host it. That there are like the different layers. So if you're accessing this one application through the browser or through the mobile or any interface, like that could be, suppose if you go for that, um, like suppose the ATM. So we are using this in the ATM transactions or nothing, but that is also the interface. So where that application backend it is running that, taking that the request and processing the request on the base of the request and giving the response back. But how that application is handling that all the request is backend. There are also some important layers that have been designed and the application is running on it. But almost whatever the work which you are doing, that is infra management or the platform management or application management. So the work which you are doing, this is nothing but that work which will be done as a project. And the project is on the different the models, I mean life cycle phases. That is a planning, executing, inspecting, and accepting. First it will be planned, then it will be execution. But execution is not enough. It has to be inspected to get the better quality, and finally it has to be accepted. So once it is accepted, then it will be promoted to the production environments or to the clients. So there are like a different phases. The application is not just like implement it and apply it. No, not in that way. So it is a the life cycle model. But who will manage the life cycle management? Management team, project managers. But how do they manage it? Yes, they use that different methodologies and the tools for the project management with the objective. So what is their objective? Management team. There are the two important points we need to remember it. On-time delivery, on budget. But whatever it is happening that from the last 30 years of this industry, the management team, they were using the different models. But those models were helping about it to achieve that 100% success of the project completion. So if you have just observed this last 30 years of that, yes, only 1/3 of the applications are getting succeeded. So on-time delivery, on budget, only 1/3. But what's happening that's remaining 2/3 of applications? Yeah, challenges. So either cost overrun, that is budget, whatever it has been estimated, that is the overrun of the cost or budget, time overrun, on time not delivered, the projects, and what are the functionality which they were talking about it that was delivered only on an average 67%. But why it's happening that all these points? Why the management team is separately following that approaches or the models, but still why the projects were not getting succeeded? This is about the before 10 years back. So why it was not, if we just try to understand it. So we have the different stages. So to complete the like a work, whether it is one line of the code implementation or any infra setting up that, whatever it is. So it is not just like deciding about it and deploying to the production, right? It is having the different teams coordination that is important. So management team, what do they do that? They just like coordinating the client and the resources management, the making that on-time delivery and on budget. That is their responsibility, but they don't work it. They don't set it and they don't work it. So they need to coordinate all these team members. So they need to coordinate the clients and optics. They need to coordinate it who are going to design that system level and program level. And once this phase is done, yes, like taking this input and giving to the development team. Then developers, they start working on it and they need to bring that the functionality of application, and as well as they need to evaluate it from their side, whether the functionality is working it or not as per the client requirement. And once the development team is done, then it will be moved to the testing phase. That is where the testing team is coming to the picture, where they are going to do that, like the test cases evaluations. So that is functionality level testing, load testing, that is system level testing, or we can say the performance testing. So if the testing team, if they're satisfied with this testing, and they promote to this next level. But testing team is about our internal team. But if they accept it, we don't promote that application to the production. So client side also, they need to accept it, right? So client side, yes, that's the client, the team, they come up with the picture and they go for that, doing that or running that, they test cases. And if they satisfy that as per the requirements which they have given, and yes, that the product has come out of it, then they promote to the finally production. That is live environment. But live environment, which team is going to manage that? Operation engineers. Yeah, so this is the life cycle process. This is not just like, I mean, the one stage of the process. The project, don't think it like as the one member or one team. So it is the different teams and different stages. And as well as, yes, different environments. So different environments are also working with that. But the main teams, if you just observe that in the process model, requirements and this design, okay, that is this is mostly into that, like preparing that design documents, requirements documents, document oriented. It is not required that much infra, but actual infra is storages, network, servers, platform, and then application. So from this layer onwards required, right? So developers, they need to have that their development environment. And testing team, to run their test cases, they need to have the testing environments. Client side, they would like to run their test cases, they need to have that their environment, that is VAT or pre-prod environment. And finally, application to access that by the end user. Then we need to host that application on the live environment, and live environment which will be managed by operation engineers. So final overall conclude, if we just observe that in the process model, developers, testers, client side, and finally operation engineer. There are the four important team members. And each team, they will be having their own specific environments. Like a development, yes, developers, they are going to use this environment. But they need to have the system, servers. They need to have like storages. That means infra is required for the development team separately. So that infra, which will be used for the developer's point of view, we say the dev environment. Next, testing phase. So testing team to run their test cases, they need to have the servers. They need to have the storages. That infra, that's the testing environment, we'll call it, where the testers can use it to run their test cases. Like their clients, they would like to run their evaluation models and acceptance models. They need the infra for it. And finally, production environment. So each environment, if we just observe that, infra is required, platform is required, application is required. Those three layers required, whatever we are talking that. So these are three layers that is required for the developers, that is required for the test engineers, that is required for the UAT teams, or pre-prod, production, or maybe DR, disaster recovery. But who will manage that? All these environments. These are team. Operation engineers. So front end, we say the developers, but back end, operation engineers are working. And here, testing team front end, but back end operation engineers are helping that to set up the environment for the testing engineers. So developer, they say, thus my code is ready, it will be released to the testing. And once it is evaluated and accepted, it will be released to the pre-prod. Once this team is evaluated and accepted, then it will be released to the production. Who is involving in the release process? So this team, operations, that is administrators. Yeah, finally, if we conclude that this is an important diagram for us, always we need to remember it. So environments, and which teams are playing that important role, and important teams, yes, what is their role? As we are understanding development environment, then testing environment, then pre-prod. So here we have represented only 4 environments, maybe client-based. So it will be 3 environments, or maybe it is 6 environments, or 7 environments, or the 5 environments. We don't know that. But basic, at least you will be having that 3 environments. One is development, then evaluation and acceptance, then production. But on the base of the client, yes. Functionality testing, separate environment, system testing, separate environment, pre-prod, separate environment, production, separate environment, post-production, separate environment. But which teams are involved in that? Development environment, as we're talking that, a developer's main role. But a developer, they need the servers. So who is setting up the servers and everything? That is operation teams. The storage required. Storage developer doesn't know that. How do we attach the storage to the systems? Or how to configure the database which is required for their application? So developer's role is concentrating on the functionality and bringing the code quality. But operation team is setting up that development infra and applying the changes as per the requirement. That is. So developer, they suggest that platform requirement, that is for the Java, what is the Java version, what are the other dependencies, So they should have the clarity about it, both the teams. Here communication is required between the developers and operation teams. Like that, if you move to that each environment, SEA testing engineers, and their role is implementing the test cases and bringing the quality of application. But to run the test cases, yes, they need to have that infra, that is setting up the testing infra, and as per this testing team to run their test cases required application changes. Developers, whatever they say that, so it will be shifted to the testing environment. Like pre-prod, that is the client is going to client-side evaluations. As his responsibility is so evaluation and acceptance. But who will set up the infra? That is the operation engineers. Finally, production environment. If that client accepts, it will be promoted to the live environment. That is a production environment, we will call it. So operations are the major role. They are going to take it with the 24/7 scalability. We'll come back those words. And setting up the prod infra and maintaining about it. So this picture is very, very important for us. We need to have the clarity on it. Are you clear about this one, everyone? Are you following that? Type that following if you are following this in the chat window quickly. Everyone. Type that the following in the chat window. Good, good to see that. Yes. It's bumping that the chat window. It's really awesome. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So have the picture of this one and each team roles and responsibilities. So now, yes, we are understanding 30 years of that industry, like before 2012, 10. So there were some challenges while implementing the projects and succeeded only some percentage, but not 100%. Yeah, so today it will be about the DevOps, and tomorrow onwards we'll start about AWS. So this is just as introduction of that. What is the kind of the role we are performing? That's we are discussing. And yes, this is a continue to that like AWS. If you know already, that's fine. Yeah, so finally, so as we're understanding that the main team's roles, this is the life cycle. But in this life cycle, so what are the main teams are involving that is? So customers, developers, testers, and operations engineers. So requirements that is given by the clients, and then developers, they are going to understand it, and testers and IT operations engineers. But why it was getting failed projects? Why the projects were getting failed? The managers are following like process models and bringing that like better planning, evaluations, executions, but still why the projects were getting failed? Because of some gaps between the teams. As we're understanding, developers team's objective is different. Testing team objective is different. And operation engineer's objective is different. But finally, all together they are working with a different objectives. Project is only one. So why is it happening that? So what are the challenges? As we're understanding, development team's main responsibility, understanding the requirements, that is a functionality. Suppose let's take that example, Gmail application they are implementing, or Eisenstein technology, any application, if you just observe that. So they need to understand the first functionality, right? What exactly the requirement, how that like sign in page, sign up page, and once you sign in, if it is the successful, Then what is the home page, how the home page should be represented. So they're all kind of the functionality, we'll call it. That could be banking domain or insurance or investment or healthcare domain, education domain, telecom domain. So it has so many domains like logistics domain. The domain specific functionality based application has to be implemented. Yes, implementing the code, but code implementation is not enough. Code integration, code quality checking, and implementing the test cases. And finally, so they should not do the manual activity. So implementing the code, I mean, these activities, if you observe that, implementing the code, okay, leave it off it. But once the code has been implemented, code integration is important. Integrating the code with other developers. Checking the code quality. That is another objective. So if they are writing that 1 line of the code or 100 lines of the code or 1,000 lines of the code, they need to check it. What is the quality of their code? And their code, I mean, suppose if I'm the developer, you implement the code, my code should not give the impact to other developers' code. I need to check it all those points. Integration challenges, quality challenges, bringing the quality, that is another challenge. And I need to coordinate the teams as a developer. That could be especially this side, teams, I mean, that is the clients. And if I'm going to do the manual activities, think it of it, how much effort I need it as a developer. Do I need to implement the code or do I need to work it on these activities? You need to implement the code and you need to work it on these activities also. Yes, both required. You should not say that I go for that only implement in the code. I don't mind about that code quality. I don't mind about that, like bringing the quality of the code or functionality. You should not say that, right? So this is some, there are some challenges for the development team and testing team. Opposite to the developers, testing team. So there is like a cold war between the developers and testers always. So developer, they think it always the positive way, and testing team always they think the negative way. So they don't focus on the developers and they go for that requirements understanding as per the requirements, positive cases, negative cases. They need to implement the test cases. That is their role, bringing that quality as much as they can do. So they need to implement the test cases and they need to keep on running the test cases and they need to evaluate it, test case result reports. And if the reports are okay, then they will accept it. If the report something is wrong, then they should mail to the development team. But these test cases are failed. Look into that. So there are some challenges from the testing team. But if they are going to do the manually all these activities, thinking about it, how much effort that is required. This is not one-time activity. This is a continuous activity. So here the continuous integration, this is important. Development team. Here, testing team, continuously running the test cases. That is the challenge. And they need to coordinate with the clients, understanding, and the development teams and infra teams indirectly. This is about implementation. What about that, like a release process? So this is also important, right? Just implementation or evaluation is not enough. As we're understanding that, once implementation and testing is done, it has to be released to the production. But production, that is release process, which teams are involving that? Yes, developers working. The team is also involved. And testing teams. And finally, operations teams. So during the release process, that means once the developer, he says, my code is ready. Who he is? taking that code and who is moving to that one environment to another environment. As we're talking the development to the testing to UAT, UAT to the production to post-production. So there's a main team, but how they are doing that? They are working as per the project requirement. But who knows that the more on the project and the platforms, that is development teams. So this team and these teams, they need to coordinate it. So operation teams main the responsibilities, releasing the changes. That's we say the deployment. So take the development code and deploy to the testing environment. Take that once the testing team is approved, take that the same release and move into the next environment. So take that once it is approved, take that release and move into that production. And once the production is ready, take the backup of it and for the disaster recovery. So code deployment, that is releasing that the changes, and not only the application related and infra related changes also important. So development environment storage, that is maybe like 100 GB required. But if you go to the production, maybe that is 10 terabytes required. So they need to manage that infra. And they need to make sure that those changes, that is the fast delivery, they should not take that days. How fastly we are delivering that. Once developer he says that's my code is ready to the production environment, that is important. Even one line of the code is changed, 1,000 lines of the code has been changed. How fastly we deliver to the production, that is important. Yeah, these are all some challenges to the operation teams. That is infra issues, communication gaps with the teams. And if they do that, the manual process, what this release, it takes more. So they cannot deliver that within the less time. They take that more and manual errors. So they need to come up with that automation. Yeah, so here in the release process, operations teams activities, if you observe that, releases, infra releases and application releases, that is about. Remember that. It is not just only one. And facing that infra issues, yeah, developers environment is different and operation engineers environment are different. So here high security. The large scale of that application, it has to be managed with large scale operations. 1 user, 1 million user. Here the developers, maybe 1 developer or 2 developers or 10 developers, they work it. But here that the same application, it has to be run it with millions of the users. But how it has to be managed, that infra. So these are all some challenges for the operation engineers. So finally, what are the important factors for the great software? So we need to have an enhanced communication among the team members. And instead of having that manual approach, automation approach is required to get that fast delivery or core qualities bring it. Yes, evaluation models, acceptance models, it should be automated as much as we can do. Everything is not possible to automate it. But if it is suppose mission critical applications like a telecom domain based application, we cannot do everything automation. But whatever the maximum possibility, that should be bring it. Yeah, fast delivery of the changes to production environment. And development and production should be the same, and the quick feedbacks, we need to have it. Yeah, so these are all some like key factors of the process of, yes, that is a project, implementation, which we can say that releases. Yeah, if we just take the enhanced communication, but do we have that? The better coordination communication among the team members? If we have that, then why do we need it? Why do we need to discuss all the things? Right? how do we have enhanced communication among the client and developers and testers during the functionality implementation time or evaluation times? Yes, we need to have that enhanced communication among these teams. And how do we automate code quality evaluation, code integration challenges, and testing teams point of view, how do they implement that automated test cases and how do they run it? The automation of the test cases, automation approaches are the very, very important. Yeah, especially to have that enhanced communication between the client, developers, and testers. So what is the process model that we have is agile. Yes, shareholders requirements. Yes. Yeah, so here one point in waterfall model having manual errors. In agile model is still having manual or automation errors. So let me conclude it. So agile model I'm coming just now. So once we understand that agile, how that is helping that, then we will talk it about it. Okay, so now in the waterfall, what are the challenges we have among the client, developers, and testers to overcome those challenges? So what is the process model which we have? This is agile. But what about this agile? How that would be? So before talking this agile model, so let me talk it two major factors, two major challenges in our waterfall approach. What are those? So here, each stage, whatever we are talking that, each stage, it is having that some specific duration, like 1 month or 1.5 months or 2 months. There's a long duration of the phases. It is not short duration. So first this phase, some specific duration, like let's assume that 1 month. Once that is done, then all the inputs which will be taken and which will be moved to the next phase. This is going to have the some specific duration. Then this one, this one, this one after another one. So long duration of the process, waterfall. This is one disadvantage. Second disadvantage, what do we have is, if you observe that client is involving in the requirements phase, and then he is coming back that the client is involving that before the production. That means before releasing to the production, he is coming, whatever the requirements I have given, and he is verifying here. But as expected, requirement based, if everything has been implemented and if it is the tested by the client and he accepts it and it is promoted on time to the production, then there is no impact. But the requirements given by the client is one thing, but finally the output we got it here in the different way, then client doesn't accept it. If the client doesn't accept it, what is going to happen? It will be stopped. Then where this gap has come up with that? So whether it has come back in the requirements itself, or is it a design level, or is it implementation level? So where is that? So they need to go for the reviewing about it, all the stages. Suppose if that is the gap is here, then again they need to change the requirements document. And as per the designing, as per that implementation, then evaluation, and then finally bringing to this. So resources have been impacted or not? Time has been impacted or not? Tomorrow it has to be delivered, but client today he is verifying and he doesn't satisfy with that and he stopped it. He's not willing to go for the promotion to the production. Then it is stopped. That means tomorrow release is stopped. That means time overrun. And if it is a small impact, okay, immediately they do that and they come back. Maybe tomorrow it will be released. Fine, good. If it is a small change, but if it is a big change, which is required 4 days, let's assume that additional 4 days have been impacted or not. Project has extra overrun or not? Resources have been impacted or not? Resources and project overrun is nothing but cost impact. So there are two major challenges. What are this? One is long duration of the phase. Each phase is some specific duration, long duration in the waterfall. And another important point is these are all, the client is not part in the process. That is important. Client is not in the process. He is involving in the initial stages, and before releasing to the production, he is coming back. Why don't we bring the client into the process? So once this design is done or implementation is done, why don't we ask the client to verify here itself why you are waiting up to this? That is simple. The raise of point has changed the process model. That says agile. So they are not going to wait. That is the 2 points. So each phase or each life cycle, it is not just long duration. That is one point. And second point is why client is not part in the process. These 2 points that have been changed, that the process model of waterfall to, especially in the requirement side, requirements with the development and testing side, agile model has come up with that. So here, so entire product, they don't go for that like as the phases wise releasing that. So they split small units, or we can say the product backlogs, small backlogs. Like let's take that example, suppose Gmail application. Why I'm talking that is everyone knows about the functionality of it, right? Sign in page, sign up page, that is login page. And then home page, spam, trash, settings. We have the different modules or different functionalities. So they split that entire all those functionalities into small product backlogs. And each product backlog has a small unit of duration. Unit of duration. That's we say the sprint, which is that like 2 to 4 weeks of the duration. They don't go for that more than that. Yeah, on the base of, these are all like which team is coming into the picture? The client and agile teams are coming into the picture. We don't decide that. Functional decide which functionalities are important and which one is high priority and what is the time duration, how many resources that is required. We don't take care about it. But in the process model, yes, agile. So all the, entire product dividing into small units of the work. And these unit of the work, which will be split into the small duration, that is 2 to 4 weeks. And within the 2 to 4 weeks, one more life cycle is every day reviews with the client. That is Scrum meetings, we will call it. Meetings with the client. It means we are not waiting until the production, before the production. So client every day he is involved in the meetings and he is verifying the changes. If he is satisfied, yes, it will be moved to the next day, the developer. Or if he says some suggestions, immediately that will be applied. So every day the revisions are like reviews with the client. So this one we say the Scrum meetings. So the small units of the release, 2 to 4 weeks with the target, and every day the revisions. Finally the small units releasing that product. Objective is the same duration, but now the phases have been with the small duration, they have come up with that and everyday reviews. That is important. The main agile, if you just observe that, this is especially in the requirements, developers, and the testing teams. So they don't go for the long durations, short duration, and even short duration also client is involved. Client review meetings. Okay, good, great. But what is the challenge? So any process model, if you bring it, we'll be having the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. Advantages is, yeah, client is involving every day, he is verifying that, and what are the changes he is saying that, next day it will be applied. It doesn't take that much time. I mean, it won't be impacted about the release dates. And here, instead of having like a long duration, short duration with the small units of the work. Final objective is product on-time delivery. Yeah, so Agile has come up with the short iterations. Yeah, plan it, and iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, and finally entire product release. But with multiple iterations, before every 1 month or 2 months, one big release will be having that to the production environment. But nowadays, every day releases to the production environment. Because these iteration, not one first iteration, once it is done, next iteration, no, not like that. Parallel iterations are going on. Some developers are working on iteration 1, certain developers are working on iteration 2. So every day releases to the production. Small units of the work releasing to the production. Enhancements or features or whatever, the changes that is required. As a sprint, and a sprint with the Scrum meetings, and releasing that as an iteration to the production. So more iterations, more releases, more stress on the team. That is important. Advantages, okay, that's good. Client is involving and every day identifying, but every day challenge to the developers, right? So this is helping that to bring that the better quality, not quality, that's coordination among the teams. That is a planning, coding, implementation, that is a build it, and then test it, release it, then deploy to the production. And if it is required any reviews, yes, review it, and again, they bring it back, the plan. So this is kind of the life cycle iteration. As a one sprints. So like that, so many sprints are coming, so many iterations. That means so many releases. Releases are there is nothing but developers are impacted, testing team is impacted, and operation engineers are impacted. Okay, that will come back. But to get it that the better release of the product, on-time delivery, on budget, Agile has been introduced into the projects. Yeah, faster, better, cheaper. Waterfall approach is, so design it and get the spec of it, and then finally code, and then UAT, then launch that. And in the UAT, client is reviewing that. If it is okay, it will be launched. Otherwise, go back and review once again all these phases. That is a time process. This is a waterfall approach. But here, what we are trying to understand in the Agile approach is small units of the work, user stories. And one user story, one sprint, a small duration, which is having that complete this life cycle. So more sprints are coming into the picture. The more sprints, more releases. More releases, nothing but teams involved. Developers are having the stress. Testing teams are having the stress. Operation engineers are having the stress. That stress, how do you reduce it? Will come back. So finally, the Agile, if you just compare with that traditional models or waterfall approaches, 459% better than the traditional methods. So we got it better output. The result, cost-wise, scheduling of that projects, productivity from the teams, quality of that application, satisfaction of the customer. So if you compare with that waterfall approach and agile methodologies, they're all having that 459% better than. Obviously, the management team, they look at about that agile or waterfall. Which one? Type that in the chat window. Now the management team, they look at about that agile process model, or is it that waterfall approaches into the project? Type this in the chat window, everyone, if you understand that point. Yes, yes, yes. That's it. Who is that Samsung? You need to change that laptop name. Next time whenever you are logging, that must be changed. Yes, obviously that Agile is, they introduced into the projects by the management team. Why do they go for that, taking the challenges? We have the better solution, right? Agile with the sprints and Scrum meetings. But the teams are getting affected. So here that, okay, so management team, they're getting the better result on their side, but the teams are getting impacted. During development team integration is the challenge. More sprints are running, more developers are working on the different sprints, but the end of the day is single project. So here important in this phase is, as Agile is coordinating, especially requirements testing team and developers. But main challenge is what we have this is integration is the challenge, because multiple sprints, multiple developers are working. So like integration is a big challenge. Finally, end of the day, there's a single project. Continuous integration is a challenge. Continuous testing, yes, testing team are involving here. So that's developers, they need to write it the test cases, and testing team also, they need to come up with that, they test cases. That is a big challenge. Continuous integration, continuous testing. These are all some important the phases in the Agile model, where which is helping that to coordinate it, especially requirements with the developers and testers. This process model helping that. But what about this process model? Release process. This is implementation. Implementation challenges, whatever we have, Agile has introduced. Fine, good. But what about the release? Where the different teams are working, development team, testing team, and operation teams. Still, we have the gaps among these teams. Because in the Agile, mainly we are talking that these three teams. Identify the user story, which one is the high priority, what is the time duration, which developers or which testing teams, and coordinating that like a client with these teams. So that is the main objective, to overcome the communication gaps among these teams, client, developers, testers. Fine, good. But now developer, he has done his work. Now release process. These teams are involved in that. That's about the DevOps. So DevOps bring teams together. Yeah, so developers and testers and coordinating that with operation teams. But how do you do that? How do you coordinate it, or how do you communicate it? All these teams during the release process. Once the developer, he says my code is ready, it has to be evaluated in the different environments, and it has to be released for each environment. Before that, operations teams are coming into the picture. If the operation team, they don't understand exact requirements for that application to run it, then application will get failure. So coordination is required here. Yeah, how do we enhance that's the better communication coordination among these teams. And this release process manually, if you go for that, is not one time. So before it was like 1 month, 2 months. So weekly releases. So that's kind of the release process. But now everyday releases. If you just observe that Amazon, on an average to the production environment, they are releasing that 1400 releases per day to the production environment. 1400 on an average releases to the production. But if it is the waterfall approach, no, they don't have that approach. Not every day, weekly maybe or monthly. That is some specific duration. But nowadays, everyday releases. But that's a 1400 releases. If you just think about it, if they are doing the manual, is it possible every day on an average to bring those many releases to the production? So automation approaches required. That means all these teams coordination don't go for the manual, do that with the tool-based process model, tool-based automation process. That is about the DevOps. And these automation approaches, don't think that only automation, but fast delivery. How fast we deliver to the production environment is important, because you are going to production environment, you have release is nothing but you have given that change to the end user. So if I'm giving that any service, that service, if I'm going to have that in the development environment or testing environment, I don't get the money, right? But if I'm able to give that service to you, that means end users, then we will get the benefit. So these, the competitive days, for waterfall model, do it correct once or do it again from the start. Yes, on the base of the change wherever it is required, it has to go back and the reviews all the phases one by one. But first time, yes, it is one time that until release. But once it has been released, if you have any issues, it has to go back to that like top level stage and identify that where it is required to apply that the change, and it has to reprocess once again. Okay, so here fast delivery of the changes to the production environment, that is main point. So that is end user. And development and production infrastructure should be the same. That is one more important. Suppose developers, they habituated to that working on Windows systems, but production engineers, production environment, secured environment. That is Linux or the Unix operating systems which we use. But on the developer's system, it is working. But whenever we move that change to the production or like UAT or testing environments, it is not working. On the developer system, it is working the functionality. But whenever we take that change and move into the testing environment way, which is Linux based, it is not working. Then who is responsible? Is it operation engineer or is it developers? Because on the developer system, he is showing that on my system, it is working. I'm not sure how the administrators have configured that one in the testing environment. And operation engineers, what do they say? What are the requirement you have given? As per that, I have configured. I'm not sure that where is the problem. Now Cold War starts between the teams, right? Now who has to take this responsibility to close that issue? That is some fight. And the management team, they need to come up with that and they need to schedule the meetings and yes, coordinating the teams. So to overcome those kind of the challenges, so developer, whatever the, production, whatever the environment that is required, if you are able to run it and run the test cases, on the developer environment, the same environment, if you're able to bring it, whatever the production we're expecting, same environment, if you're able to bring to the developers, then we are happy, right? We don't see that any infra related issues during the release, because already the same infra he is using, and while testing, he is using the same infra level testing also. That saves the time. But developer, they don't accept it because they are not good on the infra level. Because developers, if you give it like a Linux environment, they don't accept it. They always updated to that working on Windows and with the GUI-based tools. Are you getting the point? I mean, are you involving in the environment? So involve that in that role. Then you will enjoy that this class. Then finally, what you are going to do? Okay, we'll come back. But each member in the project, their roles and responsibilities. If you come up with that, that's properly understanding that. Then if you're the developer, okay, what are the challenges to you? What do you need to do that? That is, you can understand it. Or if you're going to work like as an operation engineer, yes, what do you need to do? Suppose cloud engineer. So yes, what do you need to do that to the development teams and testing teams? Or if you're going to work like as a DevOps engineer, what is about your role? How do you coordinate it, collaborate it? Or if you're going to work like as a developer, yes, what are the main challenges to you? The role, that could be anything. Yes, you are the developer, you are the operation engineer, we are the DevOps engineers. 3 roles. We should involve that. No, how do you say the 3 roles? How I can work it? If you're going to automate that, yes, as we're talking that automation approaches, you need to bring it. Automation is nothing but you need to write the code, right? Scripting. That could be Python, that could be shell scripting. Here you are going to become the developer. And once this code is ready, yes. So this code you are implementing to manage this process. Just think of it. The role of you. Okay, so these are all some major points, like how do you do that? Are you clear about all these points? Are you following that, everyone? And here I see that what is Scrum? Okay, Scrum is just like a scheduled meeting. Just think it in that way. Everyday review meetings with the client. The reviews, yes. Whenever the sprint is starting, that pre-sprint calls are like during the sprint, the communicating with the client, the scheduled meetings. And once the sprint has been completed, post review of that. So all those things which we can say that Scrum meetings. Are you clear, everyone? Are you following us the points? Just type that in the chat window. The following. I would like to see the following. Then only I can understand that. Not yes or something. Following. Yeah, sometimes these keywords, the getting and like injecting, that takes time. But what you need to do this is today, once the class is over, you need to take, you need to go for that reviewing that once again. If you have the computer's background, okay, you can easily catch up that all these points. But if you're not from the computer's background, that is required 2 or 3 times revision of these videos. Fine, good. So finally, objective of this DevOps. So development and test in an environment similar to production. So we need, how do you do that? Like a production environment is equal to the development to overcome that infra related issues. That is going to help in that. And how do you do that? We'll come back. And how do you deploy that application builds and infra changes? Yes, application related changes and infra related changes frequently. How do you do that? We go for using the some tools process. And this one we can say continuous deployment. Yes, application changes or infra changes. We need to keep on apply the changes. That is, we say the continuous deployment. Here, we are trying to bring there some important keywords, if you remember it. Important keywords. Already we are understanding continuous integration, continuous testing, two keywords. Now here, environment should be the same to overcome the infra-related issue. That is one more challenge. And here, continuous deployment. That could be application-related changes or infra-related changes, development to testing, testing to UAT, UAT to the production. That is continuous deployment or delivery. And validate operation quality continuously. That is a continuous testing and continuous monitoring. So the testing is not one-time activity. It is a continuous. Monitoring is not one-time activity. So that is continuously we need to do that. Continuous delivery or deployment and managing that infra production is equal to the development. And during the development, continuous integration. See, some important challenges. If you bring that Agile and the DevOps, that is during that functionality understanding or during the release process, finally, the 5 or 6 important keywords, which we should know it. So if you are working as DevOps engineer, there are all the main principles we need to remember it. But how do you do that, all these things? How do you set up similar environments? How do you deploy or apply the changes to the number of systems and number of environments? So yes, here, whenever we are doing that continuous delivery or the deployment, development, maybe you have that like integration environment where the 1 server or 2 servers. But once that is done, you need to release to the testing environment where you have the 4 servers, then you need to release to the UAT environment, let's assume the 10 servers, and in the production where you have the 40 servers. But how do we release it? That change 2 to 4, 4 to 10, 10 to 40. Almost around 55 servers you need to manage it. Or 100 servers you need to manage it. Or hundreds of the servers you need to manage it during the release process. That is not just one server to deploy it. Different environments, different number of servers. Yes, how do you deploy or apply the changes to the number of systems and number of environments? This is one important challenge. Yeah, so all these points, if we just talk it that, the solution, what do we have is DevOps. Why every project is expecting the DevOps? Even if you go for that ML based applications, or if you go for that normal like web applications or gaming applications, they're looking at DevOps, ops. DevOps or MLOps. They're all the generic things. The main objective of this DevOps is this is the process. This is not the tool. So now the DevOps is the process. It is not the tool. Like if you just say that Java is one skill set which is helping in the programming implementation. But that can be replaced Java with .NET or Python or Node.js. See, that is on the base of about your project. How many servers can you handle one person? That is, you should not say that like I will manage that only 100. No, there are no restrictions. That's why. So as a client, the which has come up with that environment, maybe we have this 20, 30, like some environments where I was working 180 servers. So that could be on the base of the project, where we should not say that if I say that only 10 servers, if you are in the mood of like only 10 servers, I'll manage it. No, you should not say that. But if you have that 100 or 1,000, doesn't matter that how you are managing with these DevOps process model, that is important for us. Whether you have the 1 server deployment or 100 servers of the deployment, doesn't matter for us. You need to automate it. You need to set up that infra like that. That is will come back. Yeah. So what is DevOps is developers and testers and operations teams. So all these teams coordination, that is DevOps. And here we see that Dev test ops. Can we call it like as a Dev test and ops? Yes. Or can we call it DevSecOps? Yes, if we add it in this process model securities, then we say the DevSecOps. Normally, basic process model is DevOps, but Dev test ops, yes, testing related operations, if you include it in the process, that is Dev test ops, DevSecOps, MLOps. Next, LLM based applications, the process. But objective is here LLM based application developers are there, then we'll coordinate it. The MLOps engineer. Or if it is a normal like a Java developer or .NET or Python, yes, DevOps teams. Or if you bring it like more security into the process, then DevSecOps teams. Are you getting the points about it? So if you understand it, so raise the, give that the thumbnail impression. So in the chat window, DevSecOps, DevOps, or Dev test ops, or MLOps. So these are all related to us. If you're going to extend about our career, yes, now we have the DevOps. Everyone, that's like already market spread with the DevOps. Next level is, yes, DevSecOps. Next coming the projects like more into that MLOps. That is LLM based application. How do we define the CI/CD process? That is a continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring, continuous testing, testing the data models, monitoring the data models. That is about MLOps. Are you clear these points? Awesome, right? About our career progress, are you getting the points? How do we go ahead to this next level of the applications? So if others already experience on the DevOps, yes, you can just keep it and you need to just like extend about that MLOps. That is next generation to about our DevOps to move into that. And there, how do we use it like a Python based application and how the data models. So what are like evaluation models at a prediction level, fine tuning level, regression level, those points will apply that to the ML flow. Don't worry about it. All those points, I'll come back in the separate section on it. But first to know this process, DevOps. If you know this, then you can apply to that next level of the process. But without knowing the basic, then how do you go ahead to that advanced? Yeah, finally, what is DevOps? DevOps is not the tool. DevOps is the process model, which is helping that to have the better coordination, communication, collaboration, and integration between the development teams and the operations teams. That's why DevOps, it never ends. But maybe in the DevOps, the tools are going to change it on the base of the ML process, or on the base of like normal web application process, or on the base of the DevSecOps process model, tools are integrated during the process, different tools. But about our objective is integration, continuous integration, continuous delivery of the deployment, continuous testing, continuous monitoring, and managing that the infra same like as a production. Development environment is equal to production. These are all the main principles which we need to remember it with automation approaches. But what is this continuous integration, delivery, deployment, testing, monitoring? Somewhat deeply, if you'd like to know that. So tomorrow we'll move into that, and tomorrow we'll close it this understanding the DevOps. Then day after tomorrow onwards, we start about that AWS, that is a cloud. Are you clear everyone today? Understanding about the process model of that, two process models. One is Agile we are understanding. Second one is DevOps process model we are understanding. Agile, we don't much that's involved that. But DevOps is important for us. Just know the keywords about that sprint, and yeah, we are part in the process, definitely the sprint, but mainly we help that coordinating that we become as a developer, and as well as we coordinate that development testing teams and operation teams with the objectives. What are the main 6 principles which we need to have? Production is equal to development to reduce the infra-related issues. That is one principle. Next one is continuous testing, continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous monitoring. 5 keywords: continuous integration, continuous delivery or deployment, continuous testing, continuous monitoring. And have that, reduce the infra-related issues. That means development, whatever they are doing that, or what are the infra-related issues we have, it should be identified in the development itself. Why you are waiting that until testing or to the production? So to reduce the infra-related issues. With these principles, we need to think it about our process model, coordinating that all the teams. That is about our role. But how you are going to do all these things? We use the different tools in the process. But what are those tools? And how do we use it, those tools? That is about our objective. We'll start it, tomorrow about that, the talking about it, all these important 5 keywords, integration, delivery, deployment, and all that. And maximum tomorrow we'll wind up that this process models understanding. Then we'll jump into that, the cloud. Are you clear? So type that CLR in the chat window, and if you have any queries, questions, please let me know. And if you are not understanding these terminologies and somewhat, yes, first time, so who are attending that are non-computer background, these terminologies are a little bit difficult to understand it. So I'll share this video in our specific the batch. You can join it and you can go ahead one more time to review these points. Review 1 or 2 times. If you become this more strong on these words understanding, then it is very easy next to whatever we are going to talk with that. So finally, DevOps, DevSecOps, MLOps. So DevOps, that is for that web applications or these gaming application, these applications. And DevSecOps, okay, that is securities to enhance it on the existing the web application or gaming applications. And the next, the type of applications and the process model which is coming into that, MLOps. So that is LLM based applications. as we go for that understanding, how do we implement LLM, and as well as how do we apply those LLM applications into the process model with a machine learning approaches, machine learning operations with the generative AI approach. Okay, so that's all from my side for today. So any queries, questions, anyone? So I'm going to pause 30 seconds. If you have any queries, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll close the session and we'll meet tomorrow. Yeah, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I hope so. I don't see any. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, I'm going to log off for today. So I'll meet tomorrow. So sharply 8 a.m. So everyone, so please join. Thank you all. Bye.